So our next speaker, we're going to be pivoting now to tourism. So we've finished the part on marine habitat and fisheries. We're not going to be talking about tourism. As we all know, this is also a prime tourist destination, not just for the country, but internationally, in addition to being a rich fishing ground. So our first speaker on tourism will be Narzalina Lim, former tourism secretary. Nars. Have you unmuted?
I have just unmuted myself, and
Okay.
I will share the screen now. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right. So the first point I want to make is that the Philippines is part of the Coral Triangle Initiative for Coral Reefs, Fisheries, and Food Security, which is a multilateral partnership amongst Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Malaysia, Philippines, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Islands. And if you look at Coron, El Nido, part of Palawan, it's an important part of the Coral Triangle. The Coral Triangle is the global epicenter of marine life, abundance, and diversity. I will not go through all the bullet points. You can see it there. It has the greatest extent of mangrove forests in the world and coral reefs, etc. It is very, very rich and diverse in marine life. And the Philippines is a signatory to the multilateral partnership to safeguard the region's marine and coastal biological resources. Therefore, it has a commitment to fulfill this partnership. The Calabianes Island Group, which Coron is an important part, is a jewel amongst Philippine destinations. The National Tourism Development Plan identified CIG as a major destination whose natural resources must be preserved. Now, why do we have to preserve the natural resources? Because these are the very attractions which bring the tourists in. You kill these natural resources, and as they say, the bridge will kill the natural resources. You kill tourism activity. So tourist visitation must be controlled and managed according to the carrying capacity of the Coron in order to meet the goal of preserving its natural resources. I think we have learned from the lessons of Boracay, which we do not want to repeat in the Calamayanes Island Group. Popular activities, I'll go over this very quickly: diving, snorkeling, shipwreck diving, boating, sailing, marine activities, swimming in Tayangan lakes and in the pristine beaches of the islands, interacting with indigenous cultures, mainly the Tagbanwas, hot spring baths, mountain climbing, trekking, etc. Now, the data that I'm going to show you comes from a project that was funded by the Asian Development Bank, which is still ongoing, which shows that in 2018, there were 381,000 plus tourist arrivals, and the tourists generated $157 million. That means they spent for lodging, for food and beverage, for tour guides, for boat trips, entrance to the marine protected areas, and there is a fee to enter the marine protected areas. About 4.5 million was generated by the LGU in 2018 from the entrance fees. Number of people employed estimated is about 3,530, or 30% of the estimated labor force. And many, if not all of these, are micro and small enterprises. If you look at tourist boats, dive shops, tricycles, tourist vans, they are all micro and small enterprises. All right. Now, as I emphasized earlier, the growth of tourism to the Calamianes Island Group must be managed. And while these are pre-pandemic estimates, we are confident that in 2025, we will have 400,000 arrivals with an average length of stay of 4 nights. Now, the Busuanga Airport is being upgraded as we speak. The runway is being reoriented so that jet aircraft can land directly from tourist markets in East Asia. So we have to be sure that hindi magdadagsaan ang mga turista doon. So you will see that these projections are very modest because we want to manage and control the growth. All right. So when we say we manage growth, we promote high-value tourism, longer stays, and higher tourism expenditure rather than volume. So this project, the Sustainable Tourism Project that I mentioned earlier, underwent wide-ranging consultations with stakeholders. And they identified the following infrastructure which they need. These are the people themselves in the community in Coron who want this infrastructure: water supply sourcing, treatment and reticulation, solid waste management, drainage system, development of sewerage system, and a natural resource management plan for Coron and Bintuan marine tourism clusters. A bridge between Coron and Culion was never mentioned as a necessary infrastructure project in any of these consultations. And I'd like to say that the consultation was from the ground up among the stakeholders. There were working groups where all the government agencies, the relevant government agencies were involved. Therefore, the planning process was the correct one. Okay, so there was a study by Ecofish, which was funded by USAID in 2015, that says that the net present value of the recreation and tourism area in Coron was 1.9 billion pesos, which in fact might be an underestimation. So if you estimate the value of life underwater at 1.9 billion, what value would you put on this view? Now imagine a bridge there, all right, a massive bridge. Okay, so what value would you put on this view? And in my more than 30 years of experience in tourism, there are many tourists who will pay more than $1,000 a night just to experience this view. So in the literature that I have read for post-pandemic scenarios, what will be more attractive to tourists post-pandemic would be remote natural areas, like the ones that I have showed you. Tourists will prefer destinations that demonstrate sustainable environmental and cultural practices. Tourists will be willing to pay a high price for pristine environments, and they will seek destinations that minimize negative impacts and where they can contribute to sustainability initiatives. And here, the sustainable tourism, sustainable development goals of the UN will come into play. In conclusion, tourism is important to Coron, and the proposed bridge will affect Coron's tourism attractiveness and ultimately the long-term viability of its marine ecosystem, and the micro and small enterprises that depend upon this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nars. That was very clear.